Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I'm Dan Hammer. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and I hope most of all you're all fighting that war against the grey. So today, I did a video the other day, in fact, about meeting engagements and how I'd like to see them improved, what I think about them, and how I think they're actually quite a good system. And that got me thinking that maybe they're coming in GHB. And maybe we're going to get some of those refinements in the next General's Handbook. So I thought I'd put together a small list of like 10 things I'd really like to see from the next General's Handbook. And yeah, we're just going to go through that. I'll sort of explain what I want, what I think should happen, why I think I should have it. And I'd like to hear all your opinions as well on what you'd like to see, why you think it should be, etc. So I've got 10 things. These are in no particular order in any way, but we'll get straight into them. The first of all, most certainly being, I'd like to see meeting engagements get a clean up and improvements made upon them. In the previous video I did about meeting engagements, they're a really good idea. Like making 1,000 points, a different sort of game that's can be played in a competitive manner, is something really interesting and really different. And I think there's a lot to offer in that sort of thing. Like, imagine one day tournaments aren't 3 2,000 point games, but instead you get a full 5-game tournament. You get to play 5 awesome opponents, and they're all in this cool little meeting engagement format that is so different from normal Age of Sigmar that units that might not be good in normal Age of Sigmar could potentially be good in meeting engagements. But yeah, I went over a lot about meeting engagements in the video about meeting engagements. If you want to see more of my thoughts and stuff on that, you can go to that video. I won't explain too much more of that here. But we'll go to my second point straight away, which is I want the White Dwarf battalions that have been released over the past year to be in this book. So, you know, the things like the Celeste Coast, or we've had ones released for the Hammer Hands, we've had one of the Anvils of the Helden Hammer Chambers, we've had the, I forget what they're called, the Green Nighthaunt Emerald Host for the Nighthaunt, and a whole bunch of different ones have been released over the past year. It's really hard when rules are in a White Dwarf that is only released monthly and people are trying to flick back and find these rules, or people come up against it in an event or even in a casual game and don't actually know where those rules are from and are like, oh, I didn't even know that existed. So I'd like, very much like what they did with Warcry, how they put the cards for the previous year that were released into the sort of yearly Warcry book it looks like we're getting. I'd like to see the battalions that we've previously seen over the past year put into the General's Handbook. Point 3, I'd like to see points adjustments for Cities of Sigmar. I've talked a little bit about this, and this is, I guess, much more a personal thing because Cities of Sigmar are my favourite army, but I don't just want to see points decreases. That's not what this is about to me. I want to see points increases on certain things as well, because I feel that points increases on particular units might see other units not even needing points increases to become viable options. It's Cities of Sigmar, I don't think there's any particularly bad War Scroll. I think every War Scroll has a use. Whether or not the game allows certain War Scrolls uses at the time, but I think every War Scroll in that book I could field in an army and I could make work. I don't think there's a unit I couldn't make work in that army. I think a lot of Cities of Sigmar's point issues are point related. All the, say what you want about battalions in there, but the battalions they do have are all quite good. I like them all. And all the cities are fantastic. I don't think there's a army out there that has as good a run with nearly 100% awesomeness or just as many sub-factions viable as what Cities does. Like, you're talking Living City is viable, Hammerhall is completely viable, Anvil Guard is viable. I think there's even tricks with Phoenicium. It's probably the least one. It's probably the most non-used one. But, the Greywater Fastness is a viable list, and Tempest Eye is most certainly viable, etc. But I think potentially not even decreasing, but increasing the cost of certain units that are probably undercosted at their current points value and that are just so common and end up being in every city's list, I'd like to see increases. So I'm talking things like Phoenix Guard and Shadow Warriors. Probably not so much Shadow Warriors, they don't actually see as much play as people seem to think they do. Phoenix Guard, more than any, are definitely the one I'm hitting the nail on the head with here. But yeah, I think Cities of Sigmar, and there could be a few units like, if Phoenix Guard went up 10 points, you could drop down similar units like Wildwood Rangers, Executioners. Blackguard, etc. by 10 points as well, and all of a sudden that points, and maybe some remove Phoenix Guard's Horde discount, and stuff like that. But that's just some ideas on Caesar Sigma. I think there's some points adjustments. I think with points adjustments, that army sits in a really good place. And yeah, like I said, not necessarily down, but potentially up as well. And sort of continuing on this, I sort of mentioned the thing of subfactions. I'd like to see the FAQ that comes out alongside the General's Handbook really tackle these subfactions from certain armies that are so dominant in how they play that they're the only way you see it run. I'm talking things like Petrifex Elite, Hagnar. I'm not that familiar with Fire Slayers, but from what I know, there's one particular Fire Slayer one that stands out. There's these armies that have one subfaction that you always see. It's always that one that always is on the table. I don't necessarily mean nerf them into the ground, but I'd like to see some stuff there reined in with some good FAQs or like some of them aren't even bad. Like Hagnar is arguably not particularly that bad anymore. It's still pretty good, but or bump up the other ones to be on Hagnar's level, or bring Hagnar down a little and the other ones up a little, and try and meet somewhere in the middle. But I think doing this will enable certain armies to have a better spread of armies on the table and look different and not be the same time you play Petrifex Elite. It's Petrifex Elite. It doesn't matter what units you put in there, it's Petrifex Elite. It's the same stuff. That's nothing against Bone Reapers. I actually like. If I see someone paint Petrifex Elite as Petrifex Elite, I love that army because I actually really do like the Petrifex Elite colour scheme. It's probably my favourite Bone Reaper scheme out of the book. But anyway, I'd just like to see something tackle those sub-factions that are so overly dominant in an army. Number 5, a new way to narrative. So what I mean by this, in the past General's Handbooks, we've had underground battles, we've had mass battles, we've had city fight in the most recent one. I like to see some other way to battle. Like we had the sky battles in... I think we've actually had sky battles in GHB as well, but we had the actual like sky monster versus monster thing come out in White Dwarf. Maybe you could do like something new with like, I'm not sure where we go with this. Some new way to narrative that we haven't gotten before. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure what I really want. Some other cool way. We've got some City Fight battle reports we're actually working on for the channel at the moment, and it'd be really cool to see something new to do with this sort of stuff. 6, an expansion to the mercenary table. Mercenary table and rules. I really like mercenaries. I haven't got to use as many as I want. I've got a couple set up, but I really think Mercs are actually quite a cool thing, and I want to see more of it. With the Gargants coming out and us knowing that they can be put in every army via some sort of rules, I'd like to see more Merc rules come out. And like even make old like mercenary bands, bring back some mercenary bands, make models specifically for Mercs. Like Dogs of War were fantastic back in the day, and I'd love to see something come out like that again. 7, the hidden agendas. I'd like to see refinements made to them and them improved upon. I think it was a really great tool for tournament organisers to have, or even just in random games. Narrative campaigns they work really well in as well. And just a lot of them seem to be sort of, if I'm winning, I win a little bit more. So I'd like to see ones that sort of go against the grain of the game and try and change you to make you do things you normally wouldn't do if you're winning, but trying to get these secondaries. It's a really cool mechanic. Secondaries are something really fun, and even in casual games, I really recommend people give them a try. I like them quite a lot. Number 8, significant points changes to make monolist factions not just a monolist. So the one that strikes me in this in particular is Deepkin. They made points changes in certain things in Deepkin that literally did nothing to change the list that we always see from Deepkin, which is the eel spam. I really want to see some significant point changes to armies like Deepkin to make units that aren't viable or just don't compete with the best unit in their list because of points. I think Thralls probably do need a War Scroll rewrite, to be fair. If they were 2-inch, we'd be having a much different story. However, Eels are just so good for their points, and they even put them up and they're still so good that they just can't compare. I think if we're not going to change war scrolls, we need to significantly change points in that army to be able to see more variation of that army on the table. And Deepkin's just one I'm just picking on because it's the most obvious one to me, but there are others out there like that. 9, I'd like to see them explore more design space with battle plans for match play. So what I mean by this is I was talking about in the meeting engagement ones, once again, meeting engagements, they're really cool, give them a try, that I like the idea of how to get a major victory, you had to win by a certain amount of victory points. It's things like this and changing up how the battle plan plays and playing with certain things to make the new battle plan something different than what we've had before. Make the game different. Make not each battle plan just a different point of the battlefield we're fighting over, and it's worth a different amount of points. I think there's a lot of design space you can explore in how to change up these battle plans, and I really like to do that. And just on a side note, this isn't actually a point in itself, I like to see the better version of the ones that if we're going to continue on with the 18 we've got, I like to see them pick the ones that were better and use them. Because some of them improved while some of them downgraded in my feeling. And number 10, I'd like to see, alongside the FAQ, I'd like to see a proper cleanup that is simple for an average gamer at a game store, not somebody who goes to tournaments, just an average person picking up the rules for the activation wars. There was this whole thing of like, oh, if you've done your ability last, it gets to always strikes first. And it just, while it's as simple as that, it can get quite confusing for someone reading and someone thinking, I have always strikes first, and then playing a game and going, oh, but my always strikes first comes after, so my always strikes first is better than your always strikes first. I think the way that all that should be handled is always strikes first should just be a both units attack at the same time thing. Personally, I think that's the way to go. That happened in Fantasy, and that was how you did it in Fantasy, and that was actually really good. When things were equal initiative, they attacked at the same time, so you both rolled dice and you both took away models at the same time. Really what happened is one of you rolled, did your attacks, but you didn't take off. You equated for your opponent to get full allotment of attacks that they would get because you struck at the same time. I think that's the best way to go for Activation Wars, and I'd like to see refinement to it. I'd like to see it just so heavily simplified. It's such a complex and convoluted rule space that I really want to see it just reined in and just put to something as simple as what I've mentioned. But anyway, that's 10 things from me that I would like to see in the next GHB. What would you like to see in the next General's Handbook? I'm quite interested to see what other people think. It might be just around the corner. You know, when GW opens back up, it might be one of the first things we see come out. Because you don't want to delay it for too long. Like, I do believe it'll jump the queue on a lot of things. But anyway, that's it from me for today. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey.